I want to answer everybody's questions to the extent that we can, so just keep that in mind. This is a public building. Everything is being audio and video recorded, okay? So, another thing, we are not Tyler Technologies. We are not Mercer County, okay? We are a law firm. We're located in Wexford, and our main office is in Allegheny County. That said, we go to Beaver County, we go to Mercer County, we go to Lawrence County. I am from Lawrence County. My partner Nick is from Allegheny County. My wife's family is from Mercer County, okay? So we are very familiar with the area. This is a big real estate involved question. So we'll do our best to address everybody's questions here. And just want you to know, we are not Tyler Technologies. We are not Mercer County, okay? My name is Matt Morella. I am the managing partner and founder of Morella Bensix. This is our law firm. We have 5 people on our staff. This is my partner, Nick Bensix. He's going to go through a few slides, and then we can continue with the presentation.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you guys again for coming out. I hope we're able to be very informative tonight. I'm doing my best to use my outdoor voice, so again, I'm trying for the people in the back here. First off, as Matt introduced, my name's Nick Bensix. I'm Matt's partner here at Morella Bensix. On our staff, we have Samantha Smith. I believe she's in the back table there. She is assisting folks with any questions they may have about the evaluation sheet. Please take a moment to fill out those sheets. If we have run out of sheets, if anyone was unable to get one, you can fill it out on our website. The link will be provided at the end of the presentation, and it's on our pens if you want to take one of our pens or cards. So please see Sam with any questions, or you can see Erica with any questions. Erica's our legal assistant at the firm. She's a graduate from Slippery Rock University, not too far from here. And lastly, we have our law clerk, Peyton, who's up front assisting with the show. Peyton's a third-year law student at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law, and he'll be joining us full-time this fall. After the presentation's over, whether it's Matt, myself, or anyone else on the team, if you didn't get to ask a question during the Q&A, please either find us or shoot any of us an email, give us a call. We want to provide as many people as much information as possible. Brief way of background. Mercer County has not done a countywide reassessment in 55 years. These new values are going to change everyone's property taxes. Typically, in a countywide reassessment, about a third of people are going to have their taxes go up. About a third of people are going to stay paying right around the same. And about a third of people are actually going to see some level of decrease. This presentation is for all of you here, and it will certainly help about a third of you. One last point on that, Beaver County underwent a countywide reassessment just 3 years ago in 2023. They also used Tyler Technologies for their reassessment. Since that time, our firm has handled 250 appeals. We have a very high success rate. As noted, Tyler Technologies was the firm utilized for the reassessment, and they use what is called a mass appraisal method. It's this reason why there's this variance in a third, and a third. In Beaver County, when we had folks reach out to us, we told them whether they'd be a good candidate or not a good candidate. Our evaluation of whether you may be entitled to property tax relief is free. Somebody in here will contact us for an appeal, and we'll tell you, we don't think you're a great candidate. We will tell you that, but many, many people in here are going to be excellent candidates for appeal, and that's why we're here, to go through that process with you and for you. I already noted this part. We've done hundreds of tax appeals across Western Pennsylvania, the bulk of them in Beaver County, but we've also handled them in Washington County and a good number in Allegheny County as well. This is a process, and every county is a little different, but our experience with the Tyler Technologies-led reassessment in Beaver County gives us an excellent leg up on understanding exactly who is a good candidate for appeal in Mercer County. As noted, over the past 2 years, we've done hundreds of these appeals, and we've secured over $6 million in assessment reductions. Again, some of you will not be great candidates. We will tell you that and wish you the best. But for a good deal of you, we are going to be able to help reduce your property tax liability. Now, I'm going to turn it back over to Matt as we get more into the substance of the tax appeal, what may be entailed, what is needed from you, and how this really works.
Thanks, Nick. So we're all here because there's this reassessment that's going on, and our property assessments are going from 10,000 or 20,000, and you're getting these notices in the mail that says your new tentative value is going to be 200,000 or 300,000, 500,000, right? Who's received that notice in the mail? All of you should have received that notice. So everybody's assessment in this room is going to change. The question is that value that you're being taxed on, is it accurate? Is it correct? Or is it over-assessed? We're here to correct over-assessments. And what Nick said was, not everybody is going to have a tax appeal. That's just the nature of the game, okay? But if you look at your new assessed value, and the question that you need to ask yourself is, can I sell my property for what they say it's worth? That's the question, okay? And if you don't think you can sell your property for what they say it's worth, we're going to look at that, and that's the basis. That's our baseline. But if you have an assessment that says $200,000 and you think that you could sell it for $250,000, do not call us because we cannot help you, okay? So so when you look at these, now the next question, which we're going to get to is, all right, I have this new value. Well, how much in tax am I going to be paying? The answer to that is we do not know the millage rates yet, okay? The millage rates as they currently stand, Peyton has those. I'll pull them up here in a minute. But those millage rates have to come down, okay? In Pennsylvania and in every single county, there's what's called an anti-windfall statute. And that means that when a reassessment occurs, the county, the local municipality, and the school district cannot generate more revenue from a reassessment. That would result in a windfall to the taxing bodies. So there's an anti-windfall statute. It's supposed to be revenue neutral, okay? So we're all here because we're getting these higher values. It might result in higher taxes. It might result in lower taxes. Nick said that 1/3 of your taxes might go down. But the question is, if your taxes go down, but you're still over-assessed, you have an appeal, okay? So the number that we're looking at is what is your new assessed value? And is your property worth that much today? Or did Tyler get it wrong? Go to the next one. That was a rhetorical question, I know. So what is a property tax assessment appeal? Right now, we are in what's called the informal review stage. This is not a tax appeal, okay? It feels like an appeal because Tyler gave you a number and you're going to these informal review meetings and you're saying, well, I don't think it's worth that much. You're in the informal review stage. I think Mercer County posted yesterday or the day before the schedule that we're all going to see over the next couple months as to when these values become final and when we can actually have an opportunity to appeal. Right now, we're in the informal review stage. If you go and file an informal review or you go talk to Tyler Technologies, this is my guess, I give you about a 5% chance of lowering your reduction or your assessment right now, 5%, maybe 10%. But in our experience at the informal review stage, if the data that they have on their property record cards that says you have 2 fireplaces and a concrete patio and an outbuilding and 46 acres, if that data is correct, they are not going to change it at the informal review stage. That's our experience. So I mentioned that right now we're in informal review. In July, that's the timeline that they've told us. In July, you're going to get a tax revision notice. That's going to be your new value. That's going to be your new assessed value. And whenever you get that notice, you have 40 days to appeal it. 40 days, okay? And if you don't appeal it, you're out of luck. You go to the next year. The good thing about Pennsylvania, I know we all have our gripes about it, and the system isn't fair. And actually, real quick, Pennsylvania is the last state in the country that uses the system that we see today, the last state. So if we don't like this process, we got to go to Harrisburg to get it changed. It's not your county commissioners, it's Harrisburg. So we're trying to make those changes, but right now, Pennsylvania's system, it's outdated. You're 1971. Beaver County was 1980s. Lawrence County is 2003. Butler County is 1960s. There's some counties that haven't done this reassessment in decades, right? And that's where you find yourself. So the idea is that they're trying to bring assessed values up to current market values. And the reason why, and this gets a little boring, but the reason why is because there's a uniformity provision in our state constitution that says that every taxpayer needs to be taxed fairly and equally and uniform across the board. Whenever you're using 1971 values to tax people in 2026, that violates uniformity. So that's why we're doing this reassessment. That's why your commissioners are doing this reassessment. It's obviously very politically unfavorable, but it has to happen one way or the other eventually. I'll tell you, in other states and in other counties, they're trying to do cyclical periodic reassessments, meaning that every 3 years they're trying to do a reassessment so your market values are close to your assessed value. We think that's fair. And I actually support that, right? Because you're looking at your value. Well, why am I paying tax on $15,000? My property's worth more than that. Of course it's worth more than that, because that's the 1971 value. So we got to get it current and we got to get it correct. That's what this process is for. Go to the next slide, please. So how are your property taxes calculated? All right. Right now, the millages in Mercer County are a little bit all over the place, but there's some that are like 80 or 90 mills. There's some that are 100 mills. There's some that go up to 140 mills. And what you do is you take your assessed value, you divide it by 1,000, and you multiply it by the millage. I know you're not taking notes or writing that equation down, but that's how you calculate property taxes, okay? So the question is, your new assessed value, what you need to do is divide that by 1,000, and then you got to multiply it by whatever the new millage rate's going to be. We don't know what that millage rate's going to be. I'm going to give you my opinion as to what I think your new millage rate's going to be, but that's just an estimate, and I'll get there. So the big question that we're talking about is your new assessed value should reflect your current fair market value. What is current fair market value? Current fair market value is what your property would be sold for on an arm's length basis. So if you were selling your property to an unrelated third party on the open market, what would it sell for? Generally speaking, in Pennsylvania, there's 3 ways to determine that, okay? When it comes to residential property, there's usually only one way to determine that, unless it's a new build. But if it's an older home and it hasn't been newly constructed, the most reliable way to determine fair market value is through comparable sales. So if you had a recent sale on your street, or if you had a recent sale on a couple blocks over, or within the same school district in the same municipality, you look at your property compared to those. The beautiful thing about real estate is that no 2 pieces of property are the same. That's the uniqueness of real estate. We all own real estate. Nobody has the same piece of real estate as I do. Nobody has the same real estate as you do. So whenever I say comparable sales, there's a little bit of maneuvering that needs to happen during the comparable sales process because no 2 properties are alike. But that's what our office does. We take your property, we have our own software and our own system that we compare your property to comparable sales in your county, in your neighborhoods, in your zip codes, and we give you an opinion of what our market value we think it is for your property. And if it's less than what Tyler says it is, we go fight for that, okay? So fair market value, it seems straightforward, but it's really not. And Tyler Technologies, they have this proprietary methodology that they use, and none of us know what it is, but they take your property data. This is my understanding. They take your property data, they plug it into their software or their methodology, and it spits out a number. And in our view, sometimes that number is not correct. So we're here to correct that. So your current fair market value is what we're fighting for. If you haven't sold your property in 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, 5 years, it's going to be hard to determine what your fair market. And in Mercer County, sometimes we don't have sales on our street. We own property for a really long time. So we got to get creative in the way that we determine what your market value is, and we'll go fight for you in that regard. Another strong indication of what fair market value is a sales price. If you recently bought your property and you have a sales price within the last 2 or 3 years, that is a very strong indication of what your current fair market value is. So if you have that, say you bought your property for $300,000 and you have an assessment in at $375,000, that's a very strong evidence that you're overassessed. You should be assessed at $300,000 or thereabout. Sales price is a very strong indication of fair market value. So I've kind of talked about this, why are assessments often wrong. The idea is, and I know we don't like to hear it, but it's a hard job. There's over 50,000 parcels and pieces of property in Mercer County that need to be reassessed. The county commissioners cannot go hire individual appraisers to come out and appraise everybody's property. It's just not feasible. It's not economical. They paid $3 or $4 million to Tyler Technologies to get this done. If they had to go out and pay $1,000 in appraisal, you're looking at a significant tax bill that's going to come back to you folks to pay that bill. So that's why they're using Tyler Technologies. I'll tell you, Tyler Technologies is a respected technology firm, okay? I might disagree with their methodology, and I might disagree with all your assessed values, but they are, in the professional world, a respected firm who is capable of performing these mass appraisals. Somebody has to do it. Tyler chose to do it. They have a tough job to do. Our job is to hold them accountable. So their issue that I see with their mass appraisals is sometimes their data is wrong. How many people received property record cards or data mailers that had the incorrect information on them? I bet a lot of you, right? Okay, so that's one issue. The other issue is that they're using sales that might not be apples to apples. It's apples to oranges, okay? And anytime you do an appraisal, you have to make assumptions whenever you're appraising property. Sometimes those assumptions that these mass appraisers are making are incorrect. Again, we can correct your assessments because we're looking at it on an individualized basis. When they're looking at your property, they're not saying, oh, well, there's Joe Smith's property. You know, Joe Smith's been around for 40 years. You know, he's got a good job. He owns the bait shop down the street. He can pay more taxes, so we're going to assess him higher. That's not the way it works, okay? Everybody that's why it's called uniformity, okay? Because they uniformly apply their methodology across the entire tax base. But they don't look at your properties, in our view, on an individualized basis. So we need to go in and correct that. We look at your properties as they are, and then we go in there and we make our arguments, and we have a pretty good track record at lowering that value. This does not apply to Mercer County yet, but it will, okay? There is this thing out there in this system that we have called a common level ratio. And so I actually, before I came here, I went to the commissioner's office and the tax assessment office, and I asked them, how many people filed a tax appeal in 2025 in Mercer County? How many people filed a tax appeal? You know what they told me? 0. 0 people have filed a tax appeal last year. And I think it's because nobody knows that the tax appeal is an option. You're not like, you don't see that on TV, you don't read that in the newspaper, but now you know that a tax appeal is an option. And you're entitled under the law to file a tax appeal every single year, okay? So if you don't get it done this year and your property changes next year, you can go and file another appeal, okay? But what happens is we start with a base year, okay? The base year right now in Mercer County is 1971. That's our base year. So the way that whenever you reassess a property in 2026 is you use 2026 value, you apply a common level ratio to it, and it turns 2026 numbers into 1971 numbers. Why do we do that? That's just the system that we have. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it's the system that we have. We have to make it work. In Mercer County, your common level ratio for the 2027 tax year will be 100%, meaning that your assessed value should be 100% equal to your fair market value. In 2028, this is what we saw in Beaver County. In Beaver County, the common level ratio was 100% in the year of reassessment, and it's always 100% the year after. But whenever the market settled and the reassessment became final, that common level ratio dropped from 100% to 77.13%. And what that means to me is that Tyler, and this is a pretty blanket statement, overassessed Beaver County by 20%. That's just my view, okay? And I don't know what's gonna happen here, but your common level ratio will be 100%, and then in 2 years from now, your common level ratio is gonna be, it's either gonna be 98%, or it's gonna be 90%, or it's gonna be 77% or lower, and then that tells us whether Tyler did a good job or not. We won't know until those numbers come out, but that's what the common level, you might hear it. In the tax appeal world, common level ratio is a term of art. It's a factor that we use to determine whether or not you have a good appeal. It's not something that we need to think about, but it's something that you ought to be aware of. So if you hear it, you say that you've heard it before. Signs that your property might be overassessed, okay? I talked about uniformity. In a reassessment year, look at your assessed value and look at your neighbor's assessed value. If you're assessed at $150,000 and you have a pretty identical house to your neighbor and they're assessed at $100,000, my alarm bells are going off. Uniformity. Taxes are required to be uniform. So if I'm at 150 and my neighbor's at 100, that doesn't seem uniform to me, okay? So that's one indication, is you look at your assessed value, you look at your neighbors, and if there's a difference, there might be a reason for it, but it's an indication, okay? The next thing is that you look at, we're talking about overassessed properties. If your property's assessed at $250,000 and that you have a neighbor's house who sold on an arm's length basis for $175,000, well, that's a comparable sale, okay? And if that comparable sale, when all things are considered, is less than my assessment, then I have an argument that my property's overassessed. So that's another indication. And that's when we say purchase price versus assessment. So whenever your purchase price is less than what your assessed value is, it's likely that you're overassessed. Go to the next slide, please. So we talked about the informal review and the reasons for the informal review. They have to do it. Some of you might have called and scheduled an informal review and it might not have worked out. You might not have gotten the results back yet. You might have been put on hold. You might not have been able to talk to anybody, but that's the informal review process. It is informal and it's imperfect. The informal review stage, like I said, you have about a 5 or 10% chance of lowering your value. Where the real results happen is whenever we get into tax appeals. So that's the formal appeal process. After this informal review stage is completed, you will get in July your new value. If you disagree with that value, or if you call us and we disagree with that value, we will initiate on your behalf the formal appeal process. In Pennsylvania, you start at the board level. In Mercer County, there's a Board of Property Assessment Appeals. You start there. You file your appeal with the appeal board. In Mercer County, there is a filing fee, but what I've read is that filing fee is waived for this tax year. So, I think they're expecting a good number of appeals, but that fee is waived. You just go to the board. Some boards in some counties are 2 people. Some boards in other counties are 3 people. I don't know what Mercer County is going to do. In years of reassessment, they might sit 5 or 6 different boards to hear all these appeals that might be coming, but you have to start at the board level. In Beaver County, it's very difficult to win at the board level. For whatever reason, it's very difficult. I think in part because the assessment board feels responsibility and an obligation to say what Tyler did was correct, in that unless you can change our minds based on evidence and data that's reliable and compelling, we're not changing your value. So I don't know what Mercer County's appeals board is going to, again, last year they had 0 appeals. So we don't have any reliable data to say how does Mercer County Assessment Board handle these types of appeals, but we're going to know whenever we get there. So in July, you'll get your assessment revision, and then you have 40 days. Right now it says on the website you have until September 1st. We'll know more whenever the reassessment notice gets actually mailed to you, but under the law, you have 40 days to file your initial appeal. It's going to say on that notice, it's going to have a mailing date on that notice. It's going to say your appeal must be filed by this date. That is the most important thing that I'll let you all know, is that if you do not file an appeal by the deadline, you're almost locked out and foreclosed from filing an appeal for that tax year. Unless there's some breakdown of court machinery or some type of fraud that's alleged, under the law, if you miss the deadline, you got to wait until next year. That's just what the law is. So the timeline and the timing of filing an appeal is extremely important. If you don't receive your tax revision in July, you need to call the county assessment office and make sure you get it, because that's your final number. And once that number becomes final, after that appeal period's over, that's what you're paying tax on. So get that notice. You can go file an appeal with the assessment board. The assessment office should have appeal forms available. If you just walk in and get it, I know that it'll be online. In Mercer County, I've seen that you can file these appeal forms by email, or you can mail it. I don't know if they accept fax, but you got to make sure that your appeal form is received by the deadline or you're out. So we start at the board level, we get our notice, we say we disagree with it, we file a formal appeal to the Board of Appeals, the assessment board in the county, and then they'll schedule a hearing. The hearing is usually, from what I've read, is that they're going to take place between July and October this year. So I don't know how many appeals they're going to get or who's sitting on their assessment board, but I could see the board hearings going into November, maybe even December, depending on how many appeals are filed. But that's the period that we're looking at for assessment board appeals. So then we file with the assessment board. What I've read is that within 15 days of your assessment board hearing, you'll receive a decision letter in the mail. And that decision letter is going to say no change, or it'll say change in assessment. And then you'll have a new value, okay? Or the same value. If there's no change, it'll be the same value. And if we disagree with that value, or if you disagree with that value, then the next level of appeal is to the Court of Common Pleas. That's the big courthouse right down the street here, okay? And not many of you go to the courthouse every day. And that's, in Mercer County, the filing fee to file an appeal from the Board of Assessment Appeals, I think it was $135. It might be $150. But there is a fee to file an appeal from the board to the Court of Common Pleas. And whenever you file a petition for a real estate tax assessment appeal in the Court of Common Pleas, that means you need to follow the rules of court, means you need to follow the rules of evidence, and that means that they're not going to treat you any differently than they would treat a lawyer. So it's very important that you follow those rules or they'll kick you out of court. So what we do is we represent you at all levels of appeal. So I'll say I have 1 or 2 folks this year who have come to my hearings, but that's it. We do the whole process for you. And I know that you might want to be involved, but I'll tell you why you might consider not wanting to be involved. We'll have conversations with you what we think your appeal value should be and what our methodology is and where we think we can get you. But the reason why we don't like our clients coming to the hearings with us is because you're subject to cross-examination. So if the appeal board or if the county solicitor or if the school district solicitor or the municipality solicitor shows up and you're there, they can start asking you questions about your property. And your answers to those questions might not benefit your appeal. When we look at your appeal and we present your evidence, it is entirely objective. We do not take into consideration how much you're paying in taxes or whether you can afford to pay the taxes. It is a data-driven and it's a math equation for us. And I know that's kind of cold to say, but that's just what it is, okay? Our job is to say, we think your value should be this much lower, and our job is to present the evidence to get you to that value. And if you're there, you might compromise our ability to get there. If it's your right to participate in the appeals process, but we have very much success taking appeals, talking with you about the value that we expect, and then going and getting that value for you. Some folks say, great, I don't like to go to the courthouse, I don't want to go. So, you know, if you're in that boat, great. If you're in the other boat that says, I want to go burn the place down, well, then go to the county commissioners meeting, and we're not going to go do that in court, okay? Because it's we have to do it that way. So we represent you at the board level, we represent you at the court level, and then eventually, from the day you file your appeal to the day when it's all over, the process can take anywhere from the board, you get it done at the board, you're probably done in 45 days. You file an appeal to the court, it's going to probably take 6 months, if not longer. So we'll file appeals for September 1st. In Beaver County, I had 150 or so tax appeals. I'm still fighting those appeals today. But eventually, whenever those appeals are finished and your value is lowered, whatever taxes that you might have overpaid, you'll get a refund for them. So we're filing appeals for the 2027 tax year. In January or February or March of 2027, you're going to receive a bill from the county and you're going to receive a bill from your local municipality. That tax bill is usually owed by what? The end of April? Okay? So your appeal might not be done by the time we get to April, but if we lower your value, we'll always recommend that you pay at face value or at the discount if you're able to. And once your appeal is resolved, you'll get a refund on the back end. It's not the best system, but that's the system that we have. So that is the appeal process in a nutshell. And that's the expectation, the timeline that you're going to see. So we talked about what type of evidence matters. We talked about comparable sales. If you have photos of your property, you know, sometimes, so whenever you get your assessed value, it's going to say your property is in good condition or average condition or fair condition or poor condition. Okay, if it comes in and you have photos to suggest that it's not good, it's poor, or I know you're not going to submit photos if they say it's poor and it's good, but if you have photos that say the other way, we'll get those photos, we'll present those on your behalf. If there's an issue at your property, say that there's like an easement that runs through your property where you're foreclosed from driving on 100 feet of it, or if you have like a sinkhole, or if you have a trespassing issue, whatever the case may be, if there's an issue with your property that's not fairly reflected in your assessed value, we ought to know about it so we can go fight that on your behalf. The last thing is, if you have an appraisal, if you've gotten an appraisal in the past 5 years, or if you've refinanced your property, or if you just woke up one day and said, hey, I wanted to get an appraisal because I want to know how much my property's worth, if you have that, that's very strong evidence that we can use to submit to suggest that your value is what the appraisal says it is, or within a margin of error. So Nick said this earlier, And it's just as truthful as we can be. Not every case is a winner. There are a number of you in this room, and you look at your property, and we say, I'm sorry, we can't help you. I want to help every single one of you in here because I firmly believe that being taxed fairly and only paying your fair share, that's part of being American. That's part of owning property. And if you're being taxed more than that, I'm the first guy that's going to go fight for you in court. But if I don't think that I can save you any money, I'm going to be as honest as I can be with you about your property value. And I'm going to say, I don't think I can get there. I don't want you to give me your hard-earned money and not be able to get you any results. So that being said, we focus on reasonable reductions. We cannot take your property from $300,000 to $100,000. There's no way Tyler Technologies got it that wrong. There's just no way. But if you're reasonable in terms of your expectations and you want to fight with us to lower your taxes, that's what we want. And we'll tell you and we'll be honest with you as to what we think we can do. We're not going to overpromise tax savings. We're not the law firm for you if you're coming to us to give it to them or stick it to them. That's not us. We're here to fight for what's right. And that's it. So we'll look at your stuff. We'll tell you what we think. If we don't think we can help you, there might be another attorney out there who's willing to take your case and take your money and not be able to get you any results or get you small results. But we're not the law firm for you. Okay, it might be a moment that we're all waiting for. What are our new millage rates going to be? I have taken the numbers in Mercer County. I've taken numbers across the state and in other counties, and it's my estimate, it might not be this, but it's my estimate that your new millage rate will be whatever your total millage is now divided by 8. Okay? Whatever your new millage rate, whatever your current millage rate is today, take that and divide it by 8. That's where I think, on average, your new millage rate will fall. Again, that's an estimate. It's not law. It's not science. But it's based on data that I've collected, that our firm has collected, and we think that that's where your new millage rate's going to be. So, for example, if you live in a municipality where your total millage rate right now today is 80, I think your new millage rate's going to be about 10. If you live somewhere where your millage rate is 160, which in Mercer County, there's none that are 160, but I'm trying to use good numbers. If you have 160, I think your new millage rate's going to be 20, okay? Now, it might be a divisor of 7, it might be a divisor of 9, but I'm pretty darn certain that it's going to be around that number. So take your new value, divide it by 1,000, go find your current millage rate, divide that by 8. That's how much you're going to be paying in taxes on an estimated basis. So I will give you an example. If your property value, your new property value is $100,000, your new one is $100,000. I think your millage rate is going to be 18.75. You divide 100,000 by 1,000 and you multiply it by 18.75. That means your new annual property taxes will be $1,875. Take your new value. Everybody received your new tentative values. They're not final yet, but they will be final in July. You'll take your new value and divide it by 1,000. New tentative value divided by 1,000. That's going to give you a number. You take that number and you put that to the side. And then you go find your current millage rate. Peyton, you have the millage rates. Here are the millage rates that are currently in Mercer County. It might be hard to see, but if you want it, email us. We'll send you a copy. What I have here is your current millage rates, and then I've divided them by 8. And that's what I estimate your 2026 millage rate to be. Again, it might be different, but I'm pretty darn sure that it's going to be close to that number. Unless Tyler's doing something crazy that I don't know about, but that's what I think. So again, go to the Mercer County website, find your current millage rate. Everybody's millage rate here might be different depending on where you live. But there is a column on the Mercer County website that says your total millage rate, depending on which municipality you live in. And in my view, you take that value, you divide it by 8. So then you take that first number that we talked about, your new value divided by 1,000. Then you take your current millage rate divided by 8. You smash that together. That's what your estimated new tax will be for next year. So that's back of the napkin math, but it's worth it to take a look at, okay? So again, many properties here, they might be overassessed. If you're overassessed, it means you're paying more in property taxes. I'm almost done here, guys. Just give me a few more minutes and then we can open up the forum for discussion. We will review your property at 0 cost. There is no cost for us to look at your property. We will tell you our thoughts on whether you should be entitled to reduction. I'm not going to give up my grandma's sauce recipe to tell you how I do it, but I'm going to tell you whether I think I can get you a reassessment. So, and again, the deadline, September 1st or 40 days from the date you receive your notice. So again, the process, you complete your intake form, your information sheet, you give it to us, we perform a free evaluation of your property. Whenever you give that to us, it's very important that we know what your new tentative assessed value is. If we don't know that number, we cannot review it for you. So you need to know what your new tentative value is. Now, if you call me in July with your new notice in hand, and we know that, then we can do the review then. But right now, as it stands between now and July, I need to know what your new tentative value is. And if I know what that is, I can tell you whether or not I think I can reduce it. So we perform this free review based on your new value. We tell you whether or not we think we can get you savings. You sign up with our firm through an engagement letter. And then from there, we take it from there. We handle all steps of appeal. Our fee. How much is this going to cost me? Lawyers are expensive. I know. Okay? Residential properties. Residential property owners. If you own a house, there is no fee unless we lower your taxes. 0. Unless we lower your taxes. The reason why is because I said I'm not taking every appeal. I can't. But if I think I can lower your taxes, I'll tell you that, and I'll take it. No charge to you unless I win. Okay, that's a big risk on my side, is that I'm going to fight your case for you over months, and you don't pay me unless I win. And that's like folks like Peyton and Nick and Sam and Erica, who are all working on the back end to get you that value that we're fighting for. So residential property owners, there's no fee unless we lower your taxes. Your fee is equal to the first year of tax savings, 1 year. So we lower your property taxes for 2027, and you get that reduction every year that comes after that until your property gets reassessed again. I think that's pretty fair. A lot of my clients like it like that, is we get the first year, and then you get every year that comes after that until a reassessment happens, okay? So that's our fee. If you're a commercial property owner, commercial properties are a lot different than residential properties. So we can talk with you about what an appeal for a commercial property might look like. But for residential appeals, we want to lower your value, and if we can, we'll tell you, you'll sign up for us, we get you lower value, we tell you what your tax savings are going to be, you pay us that first year, you guys get the tax savings moving forward. One important thing to know is that we do it on a contingency fee. We collect the court filing fee up front. In Mercer County, I swear it's $135 or $150. Whatever it is, we'll know exactly what it is because they haven't produced the rules yet for this next tax year. But that cost is your responsibility. That's it, okay? So you pay the filing fee to court. You don't hear from us or you don't get a bill from us unless we lower your taxes. So that's what you're looking at in terms of what you might be out of pocket here. Now, in our engagement letter, I'm sorry?
134.
134, thank you, okay? The gentleman in the back says that the filing fee is 134. I'm going to trust the gentleman in the back. That's not out of my mouth, okay? So 134 is what's been represented to me, what the filing fee is, and I will base that knowledge to you, okay? But 134 is what you're looking at for a filing fee. In Allegheny County, I think it's 135. In Beaver County, it's 187, okay? So it's going to be less than $200. 134, I think that sounds right. So that's and then here's the other thing. If we win at the board level and we don't file an appeal to court, that 134, of course, we're going to apply that to your bill. We're not just putting that in our pocket. That's going to the court. It either goes to the court or it goes back to you. So again, what we need from you, intake information, new tax value, name, address, parcel ID, new value, and then any other information you have. Whenever you sign up with us, you're going to hear us say, we need authorization from you. Well, what is authorization? Authorization is settlement authority. 99% of my appeals settle outside of court without having to go to a trial. So whenever I talk to you about authorization, I need authority, written authority from you as what I can settle your appeal for. If you don't give me authorization to settle your appeal, I can't do it. We'll have that conversation to the extent that you work with us. Here's our website, MB, our firm's Morella Bensix. It's mbtaxappeals.com. It's on your pen. It's on here. It's on Facebook, wherever you want to go, that's where it is. Talk to us tonight. We're here to answer questions. Again, Brandy Springs is going to kick me out of here eventually. I could go on about this all night. I'm a tax appeal nerd. Okay, I think we covered everything that I've wanted to cover. I hope that this was informative for all you folks. And again, we're here to help you as much as we can. We truthfully want to make sure that you're not overassessed and you're only paying your fair share. All right, we want to thank everybody for coming tonight. We hope it was very informative. And after you watch the video, if you have any questions or if you want us to do a free review for your property, please reach out to us. Our contact information can be found on the pens you took home, or it can also be found here.
If you know anyone who may benefit from this video and information, please share it with them, and thank you for your time.